Hello, everyone. I hope we're all doing well. I've talked about this many, many times in the past, and you probably have seen my community post from last week. I was talking about people using, I suppose, language, I suppose, in terms of calling people mongs, etc. Now, of course, people are entitled to their opinions straight away. Like, it's people's freedom of speech. Nobody can. There's no crime being committed, etc. But I do think it's important in society that we have reasonable debates and respectable debates, first of all, because calling somebody a mong and calling them autistic and stuff like that is not a respectable debate. It doesn't get you anywhere. It's just name calling. Let's be fair. That's what society's turned into now. In a lot of cases nowadays. Soon as you raise anything about immigration, you're called far right extremist, and then you're told to be quiet, and they're just basically trying to shut you down. And we see this time and time again in society, in debates in society and in online, etc. And it's a worrying thing, but I do think it's important in society, and I always try and do this myself. And I think the woman behind me is a great example of that, because and I think she said it better herself, that you have to understand where people come from, whereas people's opinions are coming from. If you have a different opinion, take for example on different stuff than me, take for example, you have to understand. Yeah, I understand where this person's getting their opinion from, etc. Instead of just name calling, etc. Because it's important to understand where people are coming from. How did you get there? How did you get this opinion? How did you come from here to there? If that makes any sense. And how does it differ from my opinion? Take for example, you have to get to understand where people are coming from, and understand their point of view, where they're getting their view from. Because I think that's valuable in democracy, that we have that people can disagree and people can respectfully disagree, because just shouting at each other and calling each other names and calling them whatever, it's not any way good. It doesn't help anything. It doesn't add to any discussion or any civil debate. It just makes people more angry, and it just makes people, and again, there's no crime being committed and stuff. It's your freedom of speech at the same time. But I just think it's not great, because it stops people really. It does frighten a lot of people. Not necessarily me, I'm used to it by now. But you see people online and stuff, they give their opinion about different things, and then people just shout them down, shut up and be quiet, and all that. Some other very mean stuff that's said. But again, meanness is not a crime, but as I say, you have to understand people's different opinions. That's the thing I take. And I always do that. You always see it in my channel and stuff. They always try, if somebody disagrees with me, I always like, how do you disagree? How did you have, how did you get your opinion, I suppose? What do you disagree on, and how did you get there, I suppose? How did you come up with that opinion? How did you come to that stage? How do you differ from my opinion? What made you decide? I'm not with this because this is my view and this is the other view. Because a lot of people just say no, I don't, fuck off, and etc. People don't really elaborate, I suppose is the word to use. And it's important to elaborate, of course. It's important to say your view and what you think. But I do think it's important in democracy too, and in society too, that people, of course, can disagree respectfully, of course, because regardless if we all agree, if everybody agreed on everything, it would be a very sad world. I'm sure you would agree, because nobody would be unique, I suppose, in terms of that. Nobody would say if everybody liked football, it'd be a very sad world. Nobody would like GEA or anything like that. And it'd be a very sad world if everybody just talked about football all the time and agreed in Manchester United at something as that was the best team. I'm not saying 20 fans or anything like that of Aston Villa or anything that. We're not going to go there, but you get what I'm saying. So it's important to respectfully understand people's opinion, respectfully understand how they get their view, how they got there, and how they understand how they see the world, I suppose, because everybody sees the world in a different way. Like, if I talk about one thing here, like take for example, if we're talking about the environment, other people see it in a different way, I see it in a different way, other people see it in a different way, and that's just the thing. Some people are, like, let's tear down everything and live in the shed, let's live on the ground, and some people are like, let's just tear up every electricity grid in the world and build windmills. And some people are like, yeah, let's not go mad because China is building coal power plants. Maybe we should be worried about that. You get what I'm saying? There's many different ways of looking at these things when you talk about different topics. When you talk about crime, take for example, too, there'll be some people that will say, yeah, we have to focus on rehabilitation. When people do crimes, try and get them on the straight and narrow, try to get them off the criminal spree. Instead of putting them in prison, trying to get them to reform themselves. And then there's other people that would say, people should, like myself, would say, if you commit a crime, you have to face the consequences of your action. You go to prison, or you do community service, or you face some kind of consequences. And, as I say, there's many different ways of looking at it. Every topic under the sun. And that's the thing. But it's important to respectfully understand, say for example, I say that people should go to prison if they commit serious crimes, etc. And then the other person would be like, no, I think that we should reform them, we should send them to higher education, we should try and get them into some course or something like that to try and get them to understand that, what they did was wrong, etc. I know it sounds insane, but just saying what some people would take in their head. And some systems in the world do work as like that. But you get what I'm saying. You have to understand. Yeah, I understand where this person's coming from because he wants to try and see good. And again, when majority of people talk about reform and criminals and etc., they try and see good in people, and it's always good to try and see good in people. But there's some people that are beyond good, unfortunately. But of course, you can always try. That's the thing. But this is the thing. In a lot of cases, when your kindness is abused, in a lot of cases, when we treat people who are criminals like kids, basically, and they basically go out and commit the crime again. But you understand the person that maybe these people can be reformed, maybe they become good members of society, etc. So you can see their point of view, and then you can see my point of view. If somebody committed a serious crime, you can't let them back out in society, etc. Because there's a danger to society. They could do this again, hurt somebody, kill somebody, and we could go back and forth all the time, but it's still about having respect for debates because usually what it turns into on the internet, unfortunately, fuck you, my opinion's right, fuck you. But I always try, you always see in my comments, I always try and understand people's views and always listen to what people have to say. Even though I fundamentally disagree with some people on many things, I listen to what they say. I read what they say, I understand, this is their view. This is how, in a lot of cases, they don't explain how they got it, but they're like, yeah, this is their view. I understand this. And I try and listen to that, try and engage in that. But anyway, let me know what you think. Because unfortunately, it's not a great thing for society when people are literally at each other's throats, over just an opinion and stuff. Because everybody's entitled to their opinion. And I think that's necessary to inform that in society. And I'm a pro freedom and I'm pro democracy. I'm pro just people having their views, allowed to have their views, because it's very important. Because we see in China, North Korea, etc., and unfortunately the West too is getting like it. The people can't have their views, and it's important to value people's views, even though you might fundamentally disagree. And I might fundamentally disagree with some people here that's watching this video at the moment, but still, at the end of the day, you have your freedom, you have your right to your view. And there's nobody that can take that away. I can't take that away, you can't take it away, nobody can take that away. In my opinion, the only person who can do that is Almighty God when your time comes on this earth. That's the only person who can take your view away from you anyway. Because at the end of the day, people believe what they want to believe and what they take is right in their own mind, not what they've been told to take by the media, by the state, by myself even, because I'm just saying what I think in a lot of cases. I'm not telling people you must think like this, because at the end of the day, I tell you what I take. You can disagree with me, you can agree with me, etc. Because that's pretty much what my channel is all about. I say what I see in front of me, how I see it in my head, what I see in front of me, and what's happening, why I got to my conclusion, why do I come to this, etc. Usually that's what I always try and do, and I think that's reasonable enough. But anyway, let me know what you think, subscribe for more, and bye.